So to frame this topic, I'm going to be quoting a well-renowned Swiss psychiatrist. Everyone knows him, Carl Jung. And he said this. He said, those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awaken. And so what he's referring to is taking that deep dive into self, that self-inquiry, so that we identify those places and spaces that might create some discomfort for us, and to fully live our divine purpose. And one person said in their definition that it is about, our soul is about our divine purpose. So in order for us to fulfill that, to fulfill our contract with the universe, sometimes we have to move outside of our comfort zone, move beyond from where we are so that we can step into who we are to be. So that's why the lure of becoming. The soul's call is this deeply intimate, challenging, exponentially powerful, and globally beneficial work that we are invited to do each and every day. Our individual awakening is globally beneficial because when one of us awakens, it affects and it evolves the global consciousness, as you well know. So to provide more context into our specific talk for today, individually and collectively, we must dive deeper into the areas that we may shy away from currently, such as politics. Do we shy away from politics? But is your soul calling you to step up and to speak out around what's going on in the political arena? What about privilege? Do you have privilege? And from that place of privilege, use your agency to create a more just and fair world. Might it be spiritual activism? Not so sure the two intersect. Is it about money, being abundant, living abundant lives? You're comfortable where you are, but there are tremendous opportunities out there. And sometimes we are fearful, you all, of being successful. And maybe a part of that success is experiencing more affluence and more abundance. With that comes responsibility, as we well know, and that may be the very thing that we are shying away from, and that may be the very thing that our soul is calling us to step into. Because in order to do good, more good in the world, you have to be doing well yourself. So what does it mean to lean into the discomfort? Leaning into discomfort is, well, uncomfortable. It's feeling vulnerable. And feeling vulnerable is when we take an emotional risk despite not knowing what the outcome is going to be. This emotional risk doesn't need to be an outpouring of emotions, quite the contrary. We take a risk every time we present our authentic selves to other people. Things like sharing what we think, how we feel, how we were shaped and influenced culturally, what we care about, just to name a few. And when we speak up or share, we're not sure if we're going to be accepted or rejected. It's this fear of rejection that sends our uncomfortable, anxious feelings into overdrive. Humans are social creatures. In evolutionary times, we relied on belonging to our tribes, belonging to our group. This reliance hasn't gone away. Instead, it's merely adapted to the modern world. So anytime you experience being uncomfortable, you are most likely afraid of rejection, according to the psychiatrists and psychologists. So I want you to consider what makes you feel uncomfortable or even awkward. Try to look past your emotions, which are pretty blinding in their own right, and find the reason behind your feelings. Here's some questions for you to ponder. Am I afraid of what people will think of me if I express my authentic self? Do I feel fear that I might be rejected, or my ideas or my opinions might be dismissed? Am I worried about not being up to the task that my soul is calling me to do? So when we lean into discomfort and we face our fears, we create more neurons within our brain. So more neural connections. And what does this do? It facilitates the expansion of our thinking. So more ideas, more strategies, more solutions are available to us. So that's one of the benefits that comes from sometimes confronting our fears. What else will be a benefit is building our self-confidence. And it also helps to facilitate a growth mindset. A growth mindset means that we're always thinking about, how can I improve? How can I be better than I was yesterday? How can I make better my best self? And it's an ongoing, lifelong process and journey. And when faced with a challenge, we look at our life experiences to determine if we think we're qualified to handle them or not. Unfortunately, many of us don't feel that we are equipped to meet the current demands that the soul is calling us to step into. And we hold our own selves back. The more we know about how to become more comfortable being uncomfortable, the more we can build our self-confidence. Then we'll view our challenges as opportunities rather than setbacks. Another way and another benefit of leaning into our discomfort is to practice our ability to feel vulnerable. I'll tell you all, on Monday I was in Massachusetts and I was working with 160 youth. They are youth counselors of a camp. And there were some dynamics that were going on that were not harmonious, that did not reinforce or embrace oneness. There was a lot of otherness and separateness. And I told a story, and I told a story that I haven't told in a long, long time. And it happened to me when I was like maybe 6 years old. And I got emotional, never expected that that would happen because it happened so long ago. But I was willing to be vulnerable because I wanted to touch the hearts and I wanted to appeal to the intellect of those young folks so that they could expand their capacity to be empathetic with one another. When I was vulnerable, they were very compassionate towards me. And so, of course, it was a teachable moment. And I said, and what I want you to do is to share that compassion and that empathy with all of your coworkers. No one should feel marginalized, especially at a camp that aspires to create citizens for the world. And creating citizens for the world, we have to feel safe here. We have to feel safe to lean into our discomfort, to engage in ways that maybe we've not engaged previously, so that we are modeling for these young people what it's like to be a person who is empathetic and is compassionate. So practice being vulnerable, because you are then tapping into your authentic self, the core and the essence of who you are. And the fact of the matter is that you will be absolutely supported by the universe. And that's what we have to understand. We are stepping out on faith when we are allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. But what I also know is that the universe has got our backs. So the emphasis, as mentioned, today is going to be focused on forgiveness, because forgiveness plays a major role in our ability to lean into our discomfort and to become the best that we can be. the lure of our becoming, as it was so eloquently stated before. So I'm going to share with you a stanza from the Centers for Spiritual Living's global vision, and it's related to today's topic. It reads, "We envision a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm." There is much to forgive on a societal level, as we see how on several fronts we're regressing, you all, like voters' rights, for instance. There's an opportunity to forgive there, right? There's an opportunity to make a difference, to have a voice, to improve situations. And that may call us to step into a space that maybe we have not been engaged before, becoming, in this case, maybe more politically active. We may have people in our lives that we need to forgive as well. People whom we might perceive to have been disloyal or violated consequences, left us, didn't meet our expectations, and in our minds embarrassed or humiliated us. They may have even hoodwinked or bamboozled us. Without forgiveness, we imprison our own freedom. So I wanted to share with you a quote by Ernest Holmes, and it says, "The world is beginning to realize that it has all that it should through pain and suffering. Surely there can be no intelligence in the universe that wishes a person to be sick or to suffer pain, to be unhappy and end in oblivion." So I'm going to transition now into a topic more fully, which is forgiveness, and how, if and when we don't forgive, then we suffer, and it might even be painful for us. So in years past, in teaching the basics of the science of mind philosophy, we divided the philosophy into 10 core concepts. And that 8th core concept is, as you would know, forgiveness. And here's a quote from the curriculum. "In the eternal now, there can be no place for divine anger, unforgiveness, or punishment. If we perceive a need for forgiveness, this is a human condition." So what that means is, on a spiritual level, everything is perfect, whole, and complete, and there's nothing to apologize for, there's nothing to atone for, all is forgiven. But in our humanness, forgiveness is the process that frees us to live in the eternal now moment. And what that means is being fully present, you all, to this time and this space, without baggage from the past, without disappointments from the past, without unmet expectations and needs from the past. Because in the eternal now moment, we have absolutely everything that we need. Forgiveness is the essential step before spiritual growth can flourish. Science of Mind teaches that the ultimate goal of life is complete emancipation from all discord of every nature. And this is sure to be attained by all. And we attain this through the practice of forgiveness. So let's talk about unforgiveness. Sometimes, to really understand a concept, we take a look at its opposite. When we do not forgive, as was said, we imprison our own personal freedom. Another thing is, when we don't forgive, it taints our worldview, our perspective. And what we see is what we see with. If the only thing that we can see is humiliation or embarrassment or pain that someone else we perceive has caused us, then guess what? That's how we're going to view everything. That's how we're going to show up in the world. That's how we are going to engage the world. There's this filter, this barrier that we oftentimes erect when we feel as though we have been harmed or injured in some way. And we don't want to experience that feeling again. So we put up the barriers. And what does that do? That disallows others to fully embrace us, connect with us, relate to us, resonate with us, because they may not be able to penetrate that barrier. Carl Jung said, there's no coming to consciousness without pain. In Science of Mind, we know that we are perfect, we're whole, we're complete. And if our lives are manifesting in a way that's not whole, perfect, and complete, or it causes us pain, then there is a thought that is in the way of our integrity, meaning our wholeness, our completion, our perfection. The thought causing pain is an untruth and does not lend itself to the integrity of our being. The integrity or the structure of our being is enforced by good and positive, life-affirming thoughts. And if there is pain, we must identify what is getting in the way of our natural state of perfect health and well-being. Pain is an indicator, you all, that something is awry, that something is off center. So of what pain do I speak? I speak of the pain of moving beyond our comfort zone. The pain of being the bigger person when we feel that we've been belittled, or we feel that we've been harmed or injured. Pain is necessary because, again, it alerts us to the fact that there is a need, that some condition needs to be changed. And the only way to change that condition is to change our thought about it. And in changing our thought, we, of course, change our feelings and our emotions, therefore having a different consequence, result, or experience. Pain is necessary. Suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable. At the very least, we stub a toe. We fall down. We get sick. But how we deal with the pain is up to us. Suffering is different. Suffering is caused by the illusion that we should never experience pain. A lot of people, particularly in metaphysics, think that everything should always be exactly the way that we desire, exactly the way that we want. Everything that we need is always right there, as close as our hands, as close as our breath. If that were the case, we would never grow, because it is those challenging situations that present the opportunities for us to grow, to become stronger, more resilient, and to be better than we were yesterday. So, as I said, suffering is caused by the illusion that we should never experience pain. If we can recognize the message in the pain and move to restore ourselves to wholeness, then suffering cannot be the result. Pain is the indicator. Suffering does not have to be the result. As I said, it's optional. Suffering is not only optional, but it gets in the way of healing. When we allow ourselves to, I like to say, to be stuck in the quagmire of negativity, negative experiences, victimhood, oh, woe is me. That gets in the way of our ability to heal. So instead, let's focus on wholeness, not on suffering. So what words of ancestral wisdom does Ernest Holmes have for us about pain and suffering? So I've got another quote from him. Ernest Holmes says that suffering is not God ordained, because God creates its own experience as it becomes individualized. Individuality is self-choice, volition, conscious mind, personified spirit, complete freedom, and emphasis placed on this quote by himself, a power to back up that freedom. We cannot imagine a mechanical or unspontaneous individuality to be real and to be free. Individuality must be created in the image of perfection, and let alone to make the great discovery for itself. That's in the Science of Mind textbook, you all, depending on your version. My version, page 108. So forgive yourself is a part of this forgiveness practice as well. Forgiving those whom you feel have caused you harm or injury, forgive them too, because forgiveness is the door, as I said, to personal freedom. And an essential part of healing is to forgive the self for whatever is happening. Forgiveness of others is essential as well, so that we unburden ourselves. Forgiveness allows divine wisdom to well up and to flow through our beingness, providing answers, solutions, wellness, and opportunities for spiritual growth and evolution. So here is a quote. It's a Michele-ism, and it's gleaned from a lot of different sources that I've read. Forgiveness is a liberating practice that not only enables the one who has wronged you to be free from the past. Forgiving also liberates you equally as much and allows you to live more fully in the present and on behalf of a better tomorrow. So lean into the discomfort that the pain grants you. So in conclusion, let your pain speak to you of its wisdom, and let yourself seek the wholeness of being that is being offered. Lean into pain or discomfort, discover the message, forgive the untruth, and reclaim your wholeness. Step into your personal integrity so that you are free to live the life that you desire, to live your life's purpose, and to answer the call of your soul. One last closing quote by our beloved Ernest Holmes. We have shown that a person's nature is the same as God's nature. We should have no intellectual difficulty in realizing that an infinite intelligence can make an automatic individuality, and this explains why a person suffers on his road to self-discovery. And I remind you yet again, pain is inevitable, the suffering is optional. So if you resonate with any of those many words that I have spoken this morning, affirm with me, I lean into discomfort, listening for what it must teach me. Forgiveness of myself and others set me free. And so it is.